in case you missed it, Darnell dropped a new column earlier today with his 10 biggest questions for the Bulls entering this offseason. And one of them was about young Sir Patrick Williams. Here is the little tidbit he had about Pat, if you missed it, from Darnell, if you will, Sarah. If the Bulls have seen enough of the Williams experiment, one team that has great interest, the league source said, is the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder need more size, and they have an army of draft picks that can sweeten the pot for the Bulls if a sign-in trade emerges in July. Shout out Darnell. This is an interesting development because here I was, my Bulls fan brain, only being able to contemplate two ideas. The Bulls sign Pat on the qualifying offer / they come to terms on a new deal. Or part two of that second thing is he goes out, gets an offer sheet from some other team, and the Bulls match that deal. I had not even considered a Patrick Williams sign-in trade until I read this from Darnell this morning.
It's a thing.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts is this. Like I always say, it only takes one GM. It only takes one. It doesn't matter how we see it. It's how the league sees it. So he was going to get played. We thought he was going to get some love, as you thought, but it was going to be from teams like Detroit. You know what I mean? Like those kind of squads who are rebuilding, still very young, but you don't think about the very young teams who are good that might want Patrick Williams and have him on their team. As soon as I saw Oklahoma City, I said, oh, shit, he fits there. That was my very first statement out of my brain. It was like, oh, yeah, he kind of fits that team right there. And the army of draft picks, I know Will started salivating at that moment when he heard that phrase right there. And that's what, for me, makes it more intriguing and interesting. Because, one, do I want to trade Patrick Williams, get rid of him? No. I still think Patrick Williams can be what I think he is in my brain, at least for one more year. I think that. And then we'll go forward after that. But that is damn intriguing to have that many. And you know they have a ton of draft picks and things they can offer this year or next year. And next year is the year. So does it play out where they can actually recoup draft picks in a loaded draft next year, which could be a kind of kill two birds with one stone scenario for them?
Right.
Because you know they want to compete. You know they don't want to tank. You know they want to give DeMar a cajillion dollars just to stay for a year and then give him a player option. So they can just compete in this year and kind of jeopardize that top 10 protected pick. This can solve that issue for them, saying, well, we are okay going into the draft next year because we're going to have some picks. But do they want to give up their first ever draft pick in their history? They have shown a tendency, not just AK, but just Bulls in general. We talked about this yesterday, of holding on to their guys and not wanting to give up their guys. And if they're going to give up their guys, they want everything for those guys. And then when that passes them by, then they say, okay, we'll take your Doritos at this point in time. So it's an interesting thought. And the plethora of draft picks is what really makes it interesting for me, Will.
Yeah, I mean, the picks are definitely intriguing, but like the reason you make picks, the reason you collect picks is to draft young players with upside. And Patrick Williams is still that. I mean, I know he has not really turned out the way that everybody has hoped, but you mentioned it, like when you start thinking about teams, oh yeah, he fits there. Well, that's because he fits everywhere because he's a big 3-and-D wing who every team is coveting right now. And so, yeah, it does not surprise me that a smart team, by the way, like Oklahoma City would be interested. And so I'd be super curious to know what that number is and what the Bulls' motivation behind it is, because at the end of the day, like for me, I'm keeping Patrick Williams unless it's like some egregious number, because he's still going to be a valuable asset on pretty much any number you give him under like $25 million probably at a certain point. With the cap rising the way that it's projected to rise, him being a young player with more potential and already being a valuable role player, I don't see why he's not at least like a neutral asset as a young player, big wing, 3-and-D guy who can potentially like develop a little bit more. So I wouldn't necessarily want to trade him, obviously, unless the deal is really sweet. And OKC can make a sweet deal for just about anybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at their team, I wonder about this because like they are going to have to pay Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's contract is big. I believe it kicks into a extension after next year.
Yeah.
They have to decide what to do with Josh Giddey. They've got Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams. Like I think part of what they're doing is like everybody kind of says they've got to just collect and load up for stars. I think what they are doing or thinking right now is let's be as good as we can with our players, and then every year bring in a crop of new young players who are super cheap and cost controlled.
Exactly.
And we never have to like rebuild because
Exactly.
we're always infusing talent, and then you make those decisions as needed. But I don't really see him as like the guy that they would unload the clip for. Maybe they can get him cheaply, but I think this more says something about the Bulls, which is that they are maybe interested in, or maybe he's a little bit lower on their list of priorities, to where if a team comes in, they might be more interested in a sign and trade than a because
just
that would allow
insisting on
them-
keeping him.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because that would allow them to then bring DeMar back, which is another thing Darnell mentioned in his story. An extension could be worth north of $40 million. So, I mean, I think this tells you two things. One, Patrick Williams probably not going to be playing on his qualifying offer next year. There's going to be teams that are interested. So either the Bulls are going to give him a longer-term deal, or they're going to have to match or let him walk.
Okay.
And also they want to keep DeMar back, and they're going to have to decide if, like, I mean, he's already basically, from the reporting that we have, it sounds like he's declined a 2-year, $40 million per deal, right? So that means you either have to give him maybe a little bit less money for 3 years, and then you lock in to the same core that's going nowhere, or you have to be okay with letting him walk, or maybe he takes just a little bit. I don't know. There's going to be, but something's got to give, because if you give DeMar 40 and Patrick Williams gets like 18 or 20,
And you're signing a number 11 pick to a rookie scale deal.
which is $5.2 million cap hold right now.
Right.
You're $26 million over the tax. And almost $8 million over the second apron. So something's got to give.
26 tongue lashings from Grandpa Jerry.
I mean, that look, we know that the Bulls don't like move on from front office groups. Like, that would be a way to do it. If you get yourself stuck in the tax with no way out,
that's a big no-no.
that would be. I'm speculating here, but it seems like that's the kind of thing that would be a strike from ownership.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I love how you broke that down for OKC, because it feels like their core is going to be Shai Gilgeous and Chet Holmgren. Like that's going to be
J-Dub.
And J-Dub, yes.
Yeah, I was
your
going to say,
core.
don't forget the Williams. Somebody in the comments said they've already got so many Williams.
Yeah,
adding
tons
another
of
Williams to throw in there.
They have a guy with the same name in there.
You're like,
Two Jalen
Williams with the rebound. Quick outlet pass to Williams, dashing down the left side. He finds Williams flying in for the dunk.
Better than two Sampsons.
Oh, my God.
But they have that core. Those three are going to be there. So guys like Giddey, he's going to be out of there. Like other guys like that, they can definitely continue to replace and bring in and see who fits them. And then, because the way the league is now, there is no real like dynasty, out there. Like, it's, you get this title and then let's see what happens.
We're about to have our 6th different champion in 6 years.
Right there. So that should be interesting. That's a smart way for them to look at it. The Bulls, I mean, they have to make a decision. Like, that's just what it's going to be. They're going to have to make a decision on this because they can't go into the tax. That's what makes this fun for me. This is why I'm smiling. It makes it fun. They can't go into the tax. They have to make the decision.
We all silly like the mayor.